talk, and I've got quite a good story here about Himmler to tell you. In fact, it's not just about Himmler, it's about Hitler and Göring and lots of other people from known people from the inner workings of the Third Reich. And so if you've got, as always, you've got it live chat, so I am speaking well, at the moment I'm doing it live. If you've got any questions, then you can write them down immediately, and I'll answer them when we're finished, if I can answer them, of course, because often I can't answer them at all. So on the front page of the Pariser Tageblatt on the 25th of June 1934, we can read that there was an assassination attempt on Reichsführer SS Heinrich Himmler, and this took place on the Schorfheide to the northeast of Berlin on the 19th of June of that year. Now, the Pariser Tageblatt was an emigre newspaper, so it didn't have its own correspondence in Nazi Germany, so it had to rely on other sources for its information. The reason, though, I chose the Pariser Tageblatt, because it was reported in other ones, because I have a copy. Sorry, I have a picture of it. I don't have a copy of the paper itself. And anyway, so this incident took place whilst there was a convoy, in fact, traveling to the ceremony to rebury the remains of Hermann Göring's deceased wife, Carin Göring. Now, Carin Göring had died in Sweden, and she was being reinterred at Göring's place on the Schorfheide because her grave in Sweden had been vandalized by anti-Nazis or maybe just vandals in that country. Don't know who did it. Now, you may have seen the video I did on when I went to Carinhal a couple of years ago, and so it's heavily forested, and not only that, the road there is pretty bad. I think, though, that the road there today is probably worse than it was 91 years ago. But all the same, it wasn't. I don't think it would have been much better. And I say that having read the accounts of what the road there looked like. Now, you can also think that if it's in the Schorfheide with this heavily forested area, that's a great place for an ambush. But the question always must remain is who would be doing the ambush, and how would it be organized, and this, that, and the other. I don't think it would have been all that possible, but maybe who knows, maybe some communists who'd managed to hide underground could have put their hands on some weapons and organized an ambush, or maybe it could have come from some other source. But let's get on to that. By the middle of 1934, tensions were growing inside Nazi Germany. On one side, you had Adolf Hitler, who has now the establishment elite, as I would call him. Hitler had made himself part of the establishment elite of Germany. And on the other side, there was Ernst Roehm, who led the SA, and he represented what he considered to be the real Nazi organization. The SA were the people who brought Hitler to power. It was the SA's violence. Nazism is a political organization based on the use of violence, and the violence was by the SA. So Ernst Roehm could have thought that he had the real party behind him, the Make Germany Great Again part being that of Ernst Roehm's. Now, Himmler had been Reichsführer SS since 1929. Of course, in 1929, it was a bit of a silly title because there weren't many people in the Nazi party. He also held, though, by 1934, the position of inspector of the state secret police. So in effect, he was the head of the state secret police in Berlin. because in April 1934, Hermann Göring, who'd been the boss of the State Secret Police, or to give it its unusual name, the Gestapo, had given it over to Himmler. Now, Carin Göring was the first wife of Hermann Göring. She was 5 years older than he was, and it was undoubtedly a very happy marriage. And this is one thing I've got to say about Göring. He was fortunate enough to have 2 happy marriages. He was loyal to both of his wives, and in this... given the entourage around him, Himmler, he had 2 women on the go at the same time, and everybody else's what they were up to. Martin Bormann openly had 2 women pregnant, on and off, and. But Göring, he was quite clearly a family man. He was devoted to both of his wives. So Carin Göring had left her husband, who had been in the Swedish army, and to be with him. And whereas she was of aristocratic descent, as was her former husband, as was Göring for that matter, they weren't very well off. She died in 1931, and once Hermann Göring had become Prussian Prime Minister in 1933, his financial stability improved no end. Göring was highly corrupt. He was able to acquire the country estate at Karenhal on the Schorfheide. Now, I've done a video on it, so you can see what it looks like today. There's 1 or 2 bricks still stuck together, but that's about it. There's hardly anything there to find at all. Now, Carin Göring was buried in a special crypt, and I went there and I tried to locate it, and I couldn't. I could have. It might have been easier if I'd had some original maps, because I was trying to base it off photographs for my search. But I mean, in the intervening 90 years, it was too difficult for me to actually find. Anyway, so on the way there, so this was a big occasion for the Third Reich. This was in a way sort of royalty of the Third Reich. So on the way there, an object smashed through the windscreen of Himmler's Maybach car, or limousine really, isn't it? And it injured his arm. Himmler himself was convinced that the object was a missile fired at him by an assassin in an attempt to kill him. Now, I'll just leave this story for the moment and just tell you something that happened to me. I was traveling from Gdynia to Warsaw in January 1999, and it wasn't like it is today. There's a nice big dual carriageway. Then it was just sort of small roads, but there was a dual carriageway which started at 44 kilometers outside of Warsaw. Now, I just come onto this dual carriageway, and the mirror exploded. Sorry, the outside mirror, not the inside one. The outside one. And anyway, so I managed to stop the car despite the conditions, and I was then in the Opel Astra. It was a rented car as well, and very little of them, I could find very little of it. Now, I could have come to the conclusion this was an attempted assassination of me. Perhaps it was the husband of the lady I was with. I don't know. Somebody else. Maybe it was a disillusioned tailor. Who knows who it could have been? But alternatively, there is always the possibility that it was a stone which had been thrown up from another vehicle, possibly on the other side of the road, and which showed, it was quite honest. I mean, when I stopped, I thought it was that close. If it had been another 50 centimeters over to the left of the direction it had come, then it might have been much more serious. It could have hit me, and then it could have slid off the road or whatever. Now, anyway, not being a conspiracy theorist, I dropped the assassination theory. However, Himmler was a much more suspicious so-and-so than I am, and he came to the conclusion it was an attempt to kill him. Now, I believe that Himmler was a utter coward. This belief actually was reinforced where I was earlier in this week. I went to his East Prussian headquarters, and you can see well, you'll see the video once it comes up, but the members naturally will be seeing it tonight. Well, the first video anyway. These huge, thick walls of these bunkers. Okay, the same Hitler had them in Wolf's Lair. You can see them in Mauerwald, OKH, and other places. But it's totally unnecessary. He didn't need something with this much protection, but he was frightened, and so therefore this is what he got. And so I think fear. People who are frightened are also believers in conspiracy theories. I think. Just maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Anyway, what did the other people there think? Well, I've got some answers here. Otto Dietrich, who witnessed the event, Dietrich was Hitler's press chief, and he said the following: on the journey through the forest from Berlin to the Schorfheide where Göring lived, an object the size of a bullet pierced Himmler's windscreen. I assumed it was a stone, as no firing sound had been heard, but what it was exactly could not be determined. How did he know it was the size of a bullet? I have no idea. I have no idea what the size of the whatever it was it came at me was. It needs also to be borne in mind that glass today, sort of in a vehicle, breaks in a different way. We've got safety glass these days. Things are designed to shatter, which they weren't then. Now, Himmler's predecessor as head of the Gestapo was Deals, and he noted in his book Lucifer Ante Portas the following: on the journey to Schorfheide, Himmler's car was shot at from behind. In the book, he put "shot" in inverted commas. That's why I'm trying to sound now. The perpetrator had, without a doubt, wanted to hit Hitler. There were raids and arrests and excitement which lasted quite a while over a harmless stone that had hit the rear window of the car. But it was one of the practices to put Hitler in the right frame of mind for the violence of the 30th of June 1934. It gave birth to mistrust, madness, and arbitrariness. So there were, however, those that believed it was a genuine attempt to kill someone. Hitler's personal servant, Heinz Linger, who also witnessed the event, wrote in his memoirs, Heinrich Himmler was driving in front of us. Suddenly, shots rang out from the thicket of the forest. Himmler's car stopped. He'd been hit. Himmler, deeply shocked and pale, hastily explained to Hitler that he'd been shot at. After the incident, we continued our journey, and Hitler said, that was surely meant to hit me, since Himmler doesn't normally drive in front of me. Besides, it's well known that I always sit next to the driver. The bullet holes in Himmler's car are in that direction. Therefore, Hitler thought that he was the subject of the attempted killing, and as a result, he ordered that all his vehicles be equipped with suitable armor soon after the event. He even gave presents of such vehicles to his entourage, such as Goebbels and Speer, amongst others. And now, that you'll see that now we've gone on from one bullet or one round to bullet holes. So it's sort of increasing. So others close to the events later stated that it was probably not a missile, but rather a stone, a similar object thrown up by Himmler's fast-moving car or by another car, and the incident was likely an accident, not an attempt on Himmler's life. Hans Bernd Gisevius, one of the few Gestapo officers who worked with the German resistance against Nazis and who managed to survive, was then working in the Reich Ministry of the Interior. He wrote in his post-war memoirs that Kurt de Luger, he was police general, had led the official investigation into the incident and had concluded in his final report that the episode had not been an assassination attempt, but that the object that had broken the window of Himmler's car had merely been a stone chip caused by the nature of the road on which they were traveling. And once again, I'll let you know, you can see the nature of the road, in well, you can't see me driving in the video, but what I'm going to do, it just occurs to me now, I might have the dash cam of me driving through the Schorfheide. So I might even upload, when I upload do a lot of a documentary video on this one, I might even put that on so you can actually see what it looks like. Anyway, so now we get to the real point, was this. 30th of June, few days later, 1934, you've got the Night of the Long Knives, and Himmler having survived this stone, I mean assassination attempt, was looking for blood. SS Standartenführer and Gestapo criminal investigators Karl Belding and Bernhard Fischer-Schwede were to pay the price. These two had been transferred from Berlin to Breslau in the spring of 1934. Himmler, I don't know why, but he believed that they were the assassins. When they turned up for work on Sunday the 30th of June 1934, they were arrested. The Breslau police headquarters had been taken over by the SS, which had been given executive power in Silesia in the morning hours of that day. The two suspects were locked up with numerous other arrested SA members. In the early hours of the 1st July 1934, Belding was taken from the in-house prison on orders from Berlin. He was taken to a place which is I've forgotten the name of it now. Whatever, I can see where it is, about 15 kilometers to the northwest of Wrocław today, Breslau then, and he was shot together with 6 other SA members in a forest. So, and this SS commando was led by SS Obersturmführer Heinz Schlumps. Now, the leader of the Breslau SS section was SS Oberführer Theodor Berkelmann, and there's this very interesting picture from 1931 showing Berkelmann standing with Hitler and other SA participants in a course of the Reichsführerschule. And Berkelmann had met Fischer-Schwede at this course, and he'd liked him. When the condemned men were collected together, ignoring orders from Berlin, he ensured that Fischer-Schwede was not in the group, and thus his life was spared. Fischer-Schwede was transported to Berlin on Berkelmann's instructions, sent there as a prisoner to the Columbia House concentration camp. I've done a video on that as well. The former location of which is still becoming, obviously, the concentration camp itself, the prison's no longer there, but the building, because it was knocked down to build for Tempelhof Airport. But you can see the buildings on the other side of the road, which look exactly the same as the Columbia House used to look like. Now, despite the fact he was held there, and this is a pretty serious accusation that he'd actually tried to knock off Himmler or Hitler, whoever it was, but he was released. Possibly because they realized that after the night of the long knives, there was no point in just killing everyone. Anyway, in Germany, no mention of the alleged assassination attempt was made. But as I said, it made the Pariser Tageblatt. It was certainly it was reported in Prague-based SPD in exile in its reports. The SPD also took the view it was an assassination attempt, and they suspected the perpetrators to be members of the SA, and it identified Hitler as the target of the assassination attempt. Can you see me? Am I bright enough in here? Or do you want me more light, because it's getting quite dark, isn't it? Yeah. How's that sound? Is that any better? Reports from SS circles. This is what SPD. I'm quoting this directly. Reports from SS circles suggest that an assassination attempt on Hitler had indeed been made on the occasion of the funeral of Göring's wife at Carin on the Schorfheide. Hitler has always arrived in 4 cars with a large entourage. He always sat in a different car so that no one knew exactly in which one he was for each journey. However, during the journey to Schorfheide, it was believed that he was in the first car. The car was then shot at by SA men. Among those in the car was Himmler, who suffered a serious wound to his arm. For this reason, Himmler has not been seen in public since then and didn't even take part in the bloody action against Roehm. Hitler, however, sat in the 3rd car. That's directly, I translated that from the SPD report. So the alleged assassination attempt was not announced in the domestic German newspapers, that's to say those controlled by the regime, as they all were by then, until July 1934. In the Deutsch, we see as an article on the 19th of July 1934 that SA Standartenführer Julius Ull, the leader of the bodyguard of SA Chief Ernst Roehm was the person behind the attempt. And as Ull had been murdered on the 2nd of July 1934, he wasn't really in any position to contest the allegation. Now, if I may return to Hans Bernd-Gisevius, who was an employee of the Ministry of the Interior, was informed about the assassination attempt at the time, he wrote in 1946 the following in his book, To the Better End, or Until the Better End, sorry. Everyone's on the move. Reich ministers, diplomats, the party leadership, the generals. Hitler's also present. The ceremony is about to begin. Gauleiter Kuba is reciting the last eulogy to the noblest woman in Germany. She comes from Sweden and she died 2 years ago. Himmler appears chalk white and agitated. He hastily pulls Göring aside, who then calls on Hitler, and a war council takes place before the astonished guests. Himmler demands the immediate execution of 40 communists. On the drive to Schorfheide, he was shot at. The bullet went through the protective glass of the car. He owes his life only to Providence. A few hours later, Luger tells me, laughing about the incident. With the air of a consummate honest man, De Luger offers to investigate this assassination attempt. I have the original report of the investigation. It's a valuable appendix to the events of the 30th of June 1934. For on that day, 2 Standartenführers, the alleged assassins, were killed. Himmler had them shot, even though the report presented to him clearly showed the hole in the windshield was not caused by a gunshot at all, but by a stone thrown by another car overtaking his at more than 100 kilometers an hour. The same Himmler who initially wanted to indiscriminately massacre 40 communists later just as arbitrarily singled out 2 SA leaders who may have committed all sorts of other crimes, but certainly didn't shoot at him. Is that a contradiction? No. Shocked. Himmler first wanted swift revenge. Everyone should know how expensive an attack on him would be. But at the same time, this gruesome story fits in perfectly with his preparations for the 30th of June 1934. He therefore coldly and calculatingly blamed the assassination attempt on the SA. The devil. Now Hitler and Göring must understand how far Karl Ernst, Heine and Roehm have dared to go. Where something like this has been hatched, the tension must be unbearable. And so from mid-June onward, there'll be no more compromise. It's no longer a matter of hooks sinking or bending. The second wave is rolling in mightily. Everyone senses that this time it will sweep the revolutionaries themselves. Who will swallow whom? That is the general question. I would point out that he got the date of Göring's wife's death wrong, but never mind. So, and he actually added a bit later, Belding is one of the 2 Standartenführers who carried out the alleged assassination attempt on Himmler in the Schorfheide. Since everyone already knows this, it's better not to ask any more questions on it. I need, of course, to point out that there are 1 or 2 inaccuracies until the bitter end. Of course, most of us would probably make a few inaccuracies if we wrote our own biography, and so that is worth, I think, bearing in mind. I don't understand how Karl Belding and Bernhard Fischer-Schwede were actually singled out, but I can make a proposal why it might have been. It may have been due to a murder of somebody called Helmut Unger. Unger was a Nazi party activist, and he was an SA man who had spied also for the pre-1933 German political police. There was a political police in Germany in the Weimar times, only they were supposed to sort of keep an eye on what the communists were doing, what the Nazis were doing. So obviously they're also keeping an eye on what the Nazis were doing in this case, and Unger was supplying them with information. But Unger was also thought to have been a spy for the SPD and possibly also the Communist Party. Now, when the Nazis came to power, they got the files of the political police, and in this case, they got the information on Unger, and they could see that he had been working for the political police against them. So he was summoned to the Horst Wessel house, where the Gestapo branch was then located on the 24th of June 1933. He was interrogated by Detective Superintendent Rudolf Braschwitz. Unger admitted that he had worked as a paid informant in 31 and 32. And Braschwitz later stated that he suffered a nervous breakdown, he confessed, he regretted his behaviour, described himself as a pig. But as Unger had not been guilty of any party misconduct, he hadn't broken the law, he'd only broken party rules, there was absolutely nothing Braschwitz could do. And so he confessed. And so as he hadn't broken the law, he was released. However, that wasn't the way the Nazis saw things. So what they did was two people took him away. That was Karl Belding and Standartenführer Bernhard Fischer-Schwede, who murdered him. Now, Unger's parents filed a missing person report with the police after his disappearance. This went to the Central Public Prosecutor's Office in the Prussian State Ministry, but they said that nothing could be done. Now, on the basis of circumstantial evidence, it became quite logical to them that the people responsible for their son's disappearance or probably murder were indeed Belding and Fischer-Schwede. So they demanded an investigation and indeed a prosecution of these two. Now, Rudolf Diels was still then in charge of the Gestapo. He went to see the parents of Unger and explained that if Belding and Fischer-Schwede had actually committed the crime they were accused of, then the parents would just have to live with it. However, by order of the Reich Chancellery, Diels had to prepare a report on the incident, which was probably one of the reasons why the two of them were then transferred to Breslau, out of the way from Berlin. And when a suitable occasion arose, they were gotten rid of. And what more suitable occasion could be than the Night of the Long Knives? Thus, the Nazi leadership was able to get rid of two birds with one stone, and that's a joke I made up about a couple of months ago. So anyway, look, that's I think this story is quite curious. I keep coming across references to it in other things as well. So not only related to the Night of the Long Knives, but other things. But to take this story a little bit further, about 2 months ago, somebody wrote in the comment section, asked me what I knew about the Tilsit Einsatzkommando. The Tilsit Einsatzkommando was the first Einsatzkommando to start murdering people in the countries occupied by the Soviet Union. So almost immediately after crossing the border of East Prussia into Soviet-occupied Lithuania, the Tilsit Einsatzkommando, made up of the police from Tilsit to the Sovetsk in the Kaliningrad Oblast of Russia, murdered the Jewish population of a town that was just over the border, and it murdered a number of other as well. I mean, I think I mentioned it when I was talking about the murder of the Jews in Mariampol last week or whenever I did it. And so it was sort of thinking of this. So Bernhard Fischer-Schwede, the person who was released thanks to his friendship with the SA man in charge of the, or SS really by this time, in charge of the prison in Wrocław, in Breslau, let him go. And then Bernhard Fischer-Schwede went on to being part of the Tilsit Einsatzkommando. I shall do a separate video on that, not to come off the point, because I think I've come off the point several times. I might do a video tomorrow on Karl Belding. That's it'd be a bit shorter because I don't know much about him. But anyway, okay, right. So thanks very much. Let's have a look at some of your comments here. So Tommy says, any video on Himmler's personal protection force that he travelled with. Well, there's one now. So hello, Craig, Jason, Mike, Colin, Krzysz, dobry wieczór, and Colin says 2 gate post. Don't know why. How long did I reflect on it? I can't remember what I said there. Sorry. And Colin says that the video was buffering. Sorry, there's not much I can do about that. Actually, yesterday I had a problem because I was uploading the video at the same time. And I used my phone to upload it, and with the app, the YouTube app, anyway, it sort of got it did get stuck. So, but today I made sure that there was nothing on it. It took me quite a long time. I've done 2 videos on Himmler. One of which was about 25 minutes, and the second one's about 58. And the 58 one I haven't uploaded at all because it'll take ages. I think I'll wait till I've got somewhere with Wi-Fi to do that. But anyway, but yesterday there was a problem, but today there wasn't. I'm actually in a town, so I'm in a town in northern Poland. I'm very close to the heart of the town where I am. So I can't explain that. Sorry, but I did check on speed test before I did the video. Right. So Elmer says hello, Alan, on chat. I'm able to catch a live. Very good, Elmer, or Elmer's mum, and 28 in chat. Please hit the subscribe. It's free and helps the channel hit the algorithm. Thank you, Elmer's mum. Yes, please, if you could actually give it a like. If you thank you. Colin asks, wasn't Göring head of the Prussian police? Yes, he was. That is why. No, I'm not going to say that's why Hitler won the election. That's going a bit too far. The fact that Göring was head of the Prussian police was a major factor in the fiddled elections of March 1933 and the Nazi victory. A major factor because they were able to terrorize the KPD and SPD opposition. Without that, it would have been somewhat different. And right. Gengaros writes, just finished Omar Bradley's A Soldier's Life, amazing book. Okay, I haven't read that. Corin says, Carin had 2 gate posts. That's a day, or gate entries it had. It had 2 gate posts, which are photographed, certainly. It had 2 entries, yeah. Now, when I travelled there, I took what I thought was the main entrance, but there's if you come in from the east, because I came in from the west, but if you come in from the east, actually you've got this entry, and you can see there's a place where the entry was with these 2 big gate posts, and there's a very ornate and you see where the gamekeepers lived on either side. It's quite attractive. So Colin says, you were talking about your mirror, and I just asked you for how long you reflected on the damage. Oh yes, sorry, yes. In my case, I can tell you what happened because I had to pay the rental company because the vehicle was rented through my company. But the damage came to 384 zloty, which then, well, I mean, it's just the thing totally exploded. And anyway, I thought it should come off insurance, but then again, maybe there was a limit. Elmer says, Colin, I saw how Ring's ancestor make a trip back, and I saw the 2 gate posts in that video too. Okay, good. Michael says, nothing to add except to say that for a serious scholars and people who simply want to know the facts and the facts alone, yours is the absolute best channel on YouTube. Oh, thank you very much, Michael. Thank you. I'll send your check will be in the post for that. Michael 100 Allen does a fabulous job explaining, showing us authentic videos as he travels someplace. Well, thank you very much, Elmer's mum. Oh, that's very nice. Anyway, good. So that's today's video. Actually, that I was feeling a bit cheesed off because I told you about got bitten by a dog. I was up near the Lithuanian border. I was on my bicycle, and this pack of dogs came at me, and one of them did get lucky, I don't know if it was a lucky strike or was a good shot or whatever, but anyway, and this caused all sorts of medical, well, I mean, it wasn't everything's okay, but I mean, the fact is I had to stand and do the rabies course and all the rest of it, and I had tetanus. I had no idea how I'm going to get my second tetanus jab. Anyway, the police were supposed to send me the name of the culprit, Rover or Rex or whatever his name is, and the person he lives with who was responsible. And anyway, the idiots sent a registered letter to my home, which, when they knew perfectly well I was in Suwałki, where I had to stay because of I had to do the rabies course. Anyway, I went absolutely berserk with the police. I shouted at them today, and I was still a bit cheesed off after that. So anyway, and this has sort of cheered me up. And yeah, rabies jabs are not funny. No, actually, it was okay. The rabies jab had a reputation. I remember this in 1980. I was in the army at the time, and they were told that we needed to get some kind of inoculation, just a preventative jab or whatever it was, which was normal jab. Otherwise, if you get bitten by something, it's through the heart. And not only that, the nurse who did me the last one I had, and she told me they used to have to do things like, it's not actually through the heart though, as it was explained to me then, but somewhere through the stomach or something like that. Anyway, she did say they were a bit difficult, but they were really easy. Didn't feel it, nothing. It was no problem at all. It was just like getting any other injection. So I've got there was no problem with that. Right, sorry, I came off that. Mark says, what are my thoughts on Himmler's psychological issues? Was he a psychopath? I've heard many believed he was, but I have an attachment, had an attachment disorder of some kind. I don't know. I'm not qualified. I'm not qualified to do that. To me, I'm just what I know about. I know about facts, I know about geography, I know about people. I'm relatively good at the military side of things, but I'm psychological. To me, I can't. He was somebody who believed in conspiracies. He was totally blinded by these but the thing is, this was the people who came to power blinded by these conspiracies. And the thing was this, as though they actually decided to do something about them. They were in a position to do something about them, which was dreadfully drastic. And for millions of people, I mean, some of Himmler's beliefs seem really, really odd to us. I think I can say quite openly that Himmler was a coward. His brother said he was a coward. He said he would never have gone against Hitler, done anything against Hitler. Maybe at the very end he found himself in such a position that he tried to talk his way out of it. But he had huge amount of protection around him at all times. That shows to me cowardice and a feeling of grandeur at the same time. So I think Himmler was somebody he wanted to be a soldier, sort of thing. So he was born too late to be part in the First World War. The uniforms, okay, he did get to put one on for the beer hall putsch. I'm sorry, I can't really answer that question. I haven't really done a good job of that one. Sorry, Mark. Oh yeah, and Elmer's mum says that Elmer won't bite me. He's a scaredy cat. No, I'm quite good with dogs as a. And Con says Suwałki Corridor is an interesting place. It is indeed. I thought I'd do a video on this because the Suwałki Corridor, there is so much nonsense that I have seen including by people, former high up military officers. When I've heard analysis of the Suwałki Corridor, I think I'll do one myself, and I'll back it up with some of my video from the area. But anyway, that Suwałki Gap's coming off the point a bit, isn't it? yeah, Gangaros, how can you diagnose someone from over 80 years ago? Well, I can't, but I think there are people who can diagnose. No, but there are, there's one channel called Todd Grande, and he does diagnosis of such, but he always says that he can't diagnose somebody from afar, because this is one thing about psychiatry, or that they always say you cannot diagnose somebody from a distance. You've got to have them, you've got to have the patient next to you. But I think that people can be diagnosed from, because I think we have enough information on them. But I'm not qualified to actually do that. So anyway, Mark understands. Thank you. Colin says, is it paranoia if they're really out to get you? Well, in Himmler's case, yes, certainly lots of people would have been out to get him in the end. But in a case like this, where you've got a stone, certainly a stone, thrown up by one of the other cars. The cars, if they were moving at 100 kilometers an hour, and I will post my, if I've got it, if I still got it, the video, the dash cam video of me driving into the Schorfheide. Got to be careful with dash cam videos used in Germany, but because I've got privacy rules. But having said that, I was alone, so I don't think it makes any difference. Obviously, I drive very slowly. You don't drive through these places very quickly because of the state of the roads, and bearing in mind that the suspension was then far worse than what we've got today. But I mean, something like this had to be expected, that things get churned up and thrown up at speed. It is quite ridiculous to think that nothing would have happened. So in this case, I think that Himmler was really I think it's totally paranoid anyway. Right. So Elmer's mum says, that no, that's being a realist. They were out to get them. Gangrus writes, read Heinrich Himmler Alive, Peter Longerer, good book if you want to understand Himmler. I would agree with that, but I must point out one thing. I looked it up last week, and I looked up, not last week, like a few days ago, in Peter Longerich's book, which is very, very good. Okay, it's very good. I'm not attacking, but he had next to nothing written on the place where I was, Hochwald, Posezja, where I was filming. So I did check that, what he had to say on it, and mind you, other people hardly mention it as well. Elmer's mum says, Gangrous, I'll give it a look. Always willing to learn new things. Yeah, it's a good book. Sorry, I've just knocked it on one subject part, but it is good. Another thing I was interested in last week, because I think I mentioned this yesterday, about where you had Chandra Bose, the Indian nationalist leader who managed to escape from what do you call it, home arrest in India, and then he made his way through Afghanistan, Soviet Union to Nazi Germany, and then he spent the war there. Then he managed to get himself back to Japanese occupied territory, and he was killed in 1945 in a plane crash. But Chandra Bose met Himmler. It's what is today a holiday camp near it's to the east of the Wolf's Lair. And also the Mufti of Jerusalem was out there as well. And Andrei Vlasov was there, the future leader of the Russian Liberation Army. In fact, he spent quite some time in that area. In fact, the Russian Liberation Army was actually trained in Lutsk and Gizhitsko. Anyway, coming off the point again. So Gangaros writes, the one thing though about the Peter Longerich book is that he makes the claim that Heinrich Müller was alive in 1945 and escaped Berlin. He doesn't cite any sources for it. Okay. Well, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I don't know of any evidence that Heinrich Müller survived. Actually, I've done a video on the escape of Martin Bormann. Well, he doesn't get very far. I admit, I'll tell you what happens in the end. He gets killed. But I did it in Berlin, and I walked the path that we know that Bowman took. Although I was above ground, I wasn't going to go through tunnels. I wasn't going to sort of dig a tunnel underground to sort of do what Bowman did. But and I still haven't uploaded it, and that was done 2 years ago. And I did actually stop at each point, and I thought, anyway, I'll try and put that together one day. And Carol writes, wasn't Himmler in a hospital for his nerves due to stress? Yes, Carol, I've got a video on this subject about this place called Hohenlychen. It's written in it's like so Hohenlychen. Hohenlychen. Hohenlychen was a clinic, but it was a trendy clinic in the Third Reich. It was for sports injuries. And so if you'd been a sort of big footballer or something at the time, you'd have gone there, or you'd been a pop star or whatever, you'd have gone there. Previously, it had been a for typhus, I think it was a typhus, or and it was for some disease. No, it wasn't. Was it typhus? Whatever it was. But it was privatized and it became a clinic. Now, Hohenlychen is really attractive place to visit again, and you can see these big the clinic's almost entirely there where Himmler used to hang out in, and still a clinic. And indeed, I had to film it from a distance. I didn't want to go in and say, look, I want to film in here because Himmler used to hang out here. But and these dreadful experiments were done. Himmler, if you read in Guderian's book, he says it's clear that he thinks that Himmler is skiving. He's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's finding an excuse not to do it. He writes, and I'm more or less quote sort of paraphrasing. I found him at the clinic at Hohenlychen with nothing more than a head cold, and so he said he should have been leading his troops, and but of course Guderian had gone there to take his military duties from him, and he explained to him, he flattered Himmler, and he got round him by flattery, and then Himmler happily gave up his military command for it. So anyway, Colin says, I'm working my way through Ordinary Men. Ordinary Men is a brilliant book. It's got to be one of the best on the subject of the Holocaust. In my opinion, and knowing this area quite well, knowing the files indeed that he used quite well, I got to agree with that one. Colin says Chandra Bose helped to recruit Indians for the Waffen SS, the Indian Legion. That is correct. He was the main recruiter, I would say. Is that fair to say he was the main recruiter? Yeah, I think he was the main recruiter. Michael says, I don't know about Himmler's nerves putting him in hospital, but he was hospitalized for angina in the SS Lazarett Hohenlychen in January and February 1945. Now, I must say that Michael actually has done a huge amount of research. He's got his own book, and really would like. In fact, Michael, if you don't want to actually write anything about yourself in the comment section, you could please feel free to do so, because Michael's done research on the Gauleiters, and he might just tell us something about it down there. Whilst he's doing that, I'll tell you where I am right now. I'm in a place. Called Lidzbach Warminski, and so I spent the summer. So I was in the northern Lublin area. So I did these films like Łomża. I went to Menzies. I was in Stoczek, Łukowski. I was in Łuków. Places where the ghettos noted for this Ordinary Men. Actually, I was going to do more of these places, but then again, I had started having a sort of time pressure, and I had to sort of leave. And so there's one or two places I should have gone to, which I probably didn't. And then I went I was in Przemiatyce, and then from Przemiatyce I went to a place called Knishin. Knishin is a Knishin is was about a quarter of the population was Jewish, but it's got this really interesting Kirkut, a Jewish cemetery there, which has survived. About nearly 300 stones there. Amazing, really, in some really good condition. You can sort of you can read them. If you know Hebrew letters, you can read them anyway. And that was quite a good stop. Then I went to Elk. And on the way to Elk, there's a fortress, a name of which I've now forgotten, but it was a Russian fortress from the 19th century. But I thought I wanted to stop there and have a look at that. It was battle there in 1915, First World War, and but the army had it, and so I thought I'll just give it a miss. So I spent most of the summer in Elk, formerly Luke, in East Prussia. Okay, I went to Lithuania as well. I did travel around that area. And so now I'm sort of gradually I'm making my way. I've got to be in Dusseldorf in the week after next. So anyway, so Michael says, okay, I don't like to brag, but my eighth book on the senior leadership of the SA is coming out very soon. Well, give a link, Michael. Give a link. Yeah, use the marketing possibilities. And Michael, wish you could drop your channel link for us. Gengaros, I don't know how to pronounce his name, sorry. My grandfather was in the US Marine Corps during World War II. He fought in Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima and Okinawa, and later in Korea, and was on active duty during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Retired 1967, died 2011. Yeah, I mean, that to have done that, you imagine that. Iwo Jima, Okinawa. I mean, Iwo Jima above all. I mean, horrendous. I can recall one person, I think he said this in The World at War. He said, I have no fear of going to hell in the future because I've already been there. I've got a great deal of admiration for somebody who could do that. I mean, and then to stay in the army and go to Korea. And Colin was 2 weeks in Vilcase in August. Oh, well done. Well, I was near Vilcase. Vilcase is to the west of Gizhitsko. I was parked there last Sunday. Unfortunately, the internet was very bad there. But I went there on my bicycle in Gizhitsko, formerly Lurtzen. There is a major fortress, and it's still there. Now, in January of 1945, when the Soviets captured it without a fight, and Hitler went absolutely berserk, and he sacked General Hossbach, who was supposed to be defending it, and not only there, but also the Wolf's Lair was given up without a fight nearby, and Himmler's place was given up. Well, he couldn't defend these, it didn't make much sense. But the position of the fort, Hitler might have had a point, but the fort was built in the 19th century. The only point that Hitler might have had was because it was defended by two lakes on the north side and the south side, and east side and the west side it had a canal. So, but then again, the Soviets just went over the ice. But it did hold up the the Russian army in the First World War. They didn't manage to capture, although they captured things beyond it. I mean, Rastenburg, for example, was actually captured in the First World War. This town where I am now, Liesbach-Warminski, which is really is quite far to the west of East Prussia, it was captured. I think it was only captured over 4 days. No, hey, right. Anyway, Michael says doesn't want to hijack the chat, but appreciate it. Well, you can do so, Michael. There's no problem there. I don't have a problem with that at all. I don't have any books. I mean, the only things I've actually written as such, I suppose, is my university thesis, and that was on translation theory. So, which I'm not particularly proud of anyway. So Elmer's mum's off. So I have caught you live today. Take care. Bye. See you soon. Thank you. Thanks for being here, Elmer's mum. And also we've got Gengaros. I'd love to visit Germany. My parents went to visit England, Scotland in 2 years for a cruise, and they want to take me. Okay, right. Oh, yeah, no, it's great. I mean, I like Germany, I like Poland. I feel very good. And Colin says Missouri is beautiful. It become very commercialized, I suspect. And yeah, I think this is some of the places I've been to here would be very, very similar to what they were 90 years ago. One thing though, it comes over and over again, is the damage that was done in 1945. And it wasn't even the frontline Soviet troops that did the damage, the Red Army troops, it was the rear lines. They were the ones who behaved they were the ones who were doing the thieving, the killing and all the rest. The front line were normally just passed over, and I get this from over and over again. Oh, got it, I should say, from witnesses as I spoke to. It was always those that came in the rear that were the problem, and the deliberate damage that they did. So you can find places. You can go to a place like Malbork, formerly Marienburg, got this huge Crusader castle, said to be the largest castle in Europe, well, by some people, it isn't in the world, but that stands. That looks great. That looks wonderful. You see my videos from it? It looks absolutely brilliant. But the town square, the town centre, it's gone. There's nothing there, and they built a few blocks. Now, I do agree that people have to live somewhere, but this destruction of this historic old town, and you see this in many places. Elk, where I was staying, look, okay, it's still got some German houses, the railway station, the military barracks there. Actually, look, that wasn't so bad, but there are places that are completely destroyed. Now, here in Leeds Warminski, this is absolutely amazing. You've got a Crusader castle 400 meters from where I'm parked right now. You've got the old churches, the old buildings. It's really something outstanding to see. And I just wasn't expecting it. There's another place I thought of going to, is called Bartelschütze, formerly Bartenstein, where I was feeling, I think I've done enough tourism. I think I've better just park and sort of do some work. I've just got to prepare for these trade fairs, albeit the week after next. So, but I thought of going there, and because that, I understand, there's quite a lot of survived as well. Now, in one respect, I understand the Red Army soldiers destroyed things because of what had happened in the Soviet Union. You've got to bear in mind it was Nazi Germany attacked the Soviet Union. They destroyed things, plundered things. They behaved in a very similar manner. But the difference here is that these territories were due to be handed over to Poland. So effectively, they were deliberately destroying things that were going to be given to their theoretical ally. That is the problem. And so the damage caused in this case. Here, though, the damage really was, it was still considerable. Often you see damage quoted in percents, and it's very difficult to understand what they mean by this, because the biggest amount of damage I can think of is a place called Puchenzdrui. Forgot the name of it was in German now. Rommel was there before he was based there just before the war started, August 1939. Anyway, whatever, Puchenzdrui. That was normally put as being 100% destroyed, and yeah, looking at it, you can't really see much that was there before the war. One thing about blocks, though, and I must point, you get these sort of communist era housing blocks. People had to live somewhere. You know, that must be understood. You can't sort of be a urban designer. Oh no, we want sort of Rococo arches and whatever else. I don't know. So the way Prince Charles used to speak in the 1980s, that is not. That's not possible. What he would call a monstrous carbuncle would have to be built if people were to live somewhere. People had to live somewhere. The population that lived in these places was deported from their homes in eastern Poland, which was occupied by the Soviet Union. In some cases, they were even deported from what was Poland. So anyway, sorry. Anyway, good. So Colin writes, Gangrus writes, Frontline troops are very disciplined. The rear ones, things break down. Yeah. Collins says it's the largest brick castle. Sorry, that's Malbork, Marienburg, is the largest brick castle in the world. Yes, that makes sense. Gangros says, my mother's surname's Polish, was my grandfather was adopted from a nunnery by Polish family in Milwaukee in the 1920s. Oh, very good. So, Colin says, the Stare Miasto, Old Town in Malbork, is non-existent, as you say, apart from a couple of towers. I stayed in a hotel that was the old Sparkasse. Nice old building. Ah, very good. Michael writes, current project is a biographical chronology, hundreds of documents, speeches and articles translated, and hundreds of photos of Gauleiter Wilhelm Kuber, Generalkommissar of Weißruthenian. Right, yes, White Ruthenia. So Kuber was the Gauleiter, yeah, White Ruthenia, also here, East Prussia. I read a book in 1994 that was written in 1992. I can't remember the name of the book, but it was a biography, autobiography of somebody being in the pilot in the RAF in the First World War, or whatever it was called then, the Flying Corps, and he knew Kuber. He met him in the 1930s, and so he's got these long explanations now, and he seemed to have got on quite well with them. It seems that the two of them sort of liked each other, and so I thought a lot about this recently, because Kuber was based also in Königsberg, in Kaliningrad. There's a thing called the Amber Room. The Amber Room was a room made out of amber by the King of Prussia about 1710 or thereabouts. And Peter the Great came by one day. He really admired the Amber Room, and he said how much he liked it. And the King of Prussia, whoever he was, decided to give it to Peter the Great. And Peter the Great then took it off to Petersburg, which he was then in the process of building. So it ended up in, I think, the Winter Palace or the Summer Palace. And then it ended up in a palace in the middle of the 18th century called Tsarskoye Selo. Tsarskoye Selo is to the west of Petersburg. And so in 1941, in 1917, this is where the last Tsar was actually imprisoned. He was held there under house arrest. That was the word I was looking for earlier. And in fact, he couldn't really leave. So he's really small. His family were held there, and later they were sent off to the interior of the Soviet Union. Later they were murdered. But so this castle, this palace, the Russian Versailles, was captured in 1941. And the Amber Room was stolen. It was dismantled somehow, and it was taken to Königsberg. And at Königsberg it stayed, and then it was supposed to be packed up, maybe. Not clear what the story is. But anyway, it disappeared. It's gone. So it was in the castle in Königsberg. Castle in Königsberg was destroyed after the Soviet occupier was destroyed the Soviet Union, in the 1960s or something. And anyway, so in the Kuber was arrested. He was in prison. He was in prison in Mokotów in Poland. Died in 1986. But in the 1970s, there was a search for the Amber Room. In fact, there was still searching for it. There was still search going on last year for it. And he claimed it was I don't know who claimed. Somebody said it was at Mauerwald, today Mamerki, which is on Lake Mamre, then called Lake Mauertsee. That it was OKH headquarters, and somehow the Amber Room had ended up at Mauerwald. Don't know why, how. And anyway, so in the 1970s, they were actually now there's these huge bunkers. I was there 3 days ago. Amazing, huge bunkers, and in these So it was thought that somehow there's one bunker which was being prepared. It was never built, but it would have been the biggest bunker ever built. It was 74 meters long by, I think it was 35, 34 wide, something like that. Absolutely enormous. I mean, the bunkers that are there, like there's one that's sort of like Hitler's bunker, enormous, but inside there's next to nothing. There's no room there at all. You wouldn't want to live in one, horrible. But anyway, so it was thought that in the foundations for this bunker was the amber room, and the 1970s they went there and tried to sort of drill it out, and they took Kuba with them. He didn't know, I don't think it was there. I think I got the impression he rather fancied the day out. But anyway, he died in Mokoto. This is one person I wish I started doing these sort of things earlier. I mean, I could have interviewed him, couldn't I? 86. Could have gone round. It might have been difficult with communist government, but he's one of the characters I thought I really missed out on. Anyway, sorry, I don't know why I started off about that Kuba. Oh yes, because of Michael. Right, Gengaros writes, I do have to point out, for the Soviet troops when the Battle of Berlin ended, Soviet troops started immediately distributing food and water to the civilian population. Yes, they did that in Berlin. That is true. They probably did it in other places as well, but yeah, okay. Michael writes, Kuba's little brother was killed in action as an aviator in France in 1916. Aha, so that might have been why he liked the British aviator. And while Wilhelm Kuba dodged combat service in the Great War. Oh, sorry, Michael says, I think you're thinking of Erich Koch. I am thinking of Erich Koch. Sorry. If this hadn't been done live, I would have taken that. Yeah, sorry. Oh, how embarrassing. Yes, I was thinking of Erich Koch. Sorry. Yeah, Kuba was burned. Yeah, sorry, Kuba was blown up in his house night 21st, 26th September 1943. Yes, he was killed by his maid, who was a Russian, a Belarusian servant at the house. Sorry, I'm feeling really embarrassed now by getting the two of them mixed up like that. Right. Koch was reputedly kept alive rather than receiving a more appropriate sentence of death due to his possible knowledge of the Amber Room. Koch died at Barchevo. Yes, he was taken to Barchevo prison. I think he was in Mokotów though for most of us at the time. He died at Barchevo in 86. Sorry, I'm really embarrassed now about making this mistake about Wilhelm Kuba and Erich Koch. Sorry. This can happen at times, and yeah. Koch was the Gauleiter of East Prussia, and Kuba was from White Russia. Sorry. I wouldn't have made this mistake. Hello, David. I wouldn't have made this mistake 10 years ago. This is it's like the talk I was given, and I forgot the name of Rudolf Hess during the talk. Anyway, okay, sorry. You see, this is one of the good things when you do actually do a video, because you can actually, if you're sort of just speaking, you can actually take it out. I'll leave it up though. Which if you write a book, you can't do it. You're stuck with it. And actually, in my thesis, I did something like this. I got Extremadura is a province in Spain, and Andalusia is a province. And for some reason, instead of writing Extremadura, I wrote Andalusia for Extremadura. And it was only when I was doing had to defend your thesis, and the professor said this to me. You said this. I said, did I? And she said, yeah, he said, you said it all, wrote it all the way through. I thought, oh, dear Lord. Sorry. Anyway, sorry. Anyway, I'm sort of super embarrassed now, but never mind. So I think I'd better shut up before I say anything else, which is silly. And So, well, thanks very much for watching. Tomorrow I'll do a video on Karl Belding. You know what's going to happen to me. You know he's going to end up getting shot. But I'll do a video. I'll do a video on him. And so for the moment, thanks for being with me today, and all the best from me in, where am I? Lisbon, Minsky in Poland. Bye for now. Bye.